The cake hit the marble floor with a sickening crack. Clara Hayes didn't know that bringing a birthday cake to Lucian Voss, the most dangerous man in the city, would be the worst mistake of her life. She didn't know this date marked the anniversary of his wife's death. She didn't know he'd built an empire on blood and silence, or that kindness in his world was weakness. All she knew, standing in that cold mansion hallway, was the rage burning in his ice-blue eyes as he said two words that shattered everything. "You're fired." But this story, it doesn't end there. Stay with me until the very end. Drop a like and comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels across the world. The job posting had been simple. Too simple. Housekeeper needed. Excellent pay. Discretion required. Clara Hayes had stared at those words on her phone screen for 3 full minutes before applying. Excellent pay meant she could finally catch up on her mother's medical bills. Discretion required meant the employer had secrets, but everyone had secrets. She'd cleaned houses before. How bad could it be? She found out exactly how bad on a Tuesday morning in late October when the iron gates of the Voss estate swung open and swallowed her whole. The mansion rose from the hillside like something carved from stone and shadow. 3 stories of gray granite, windows that reflected nothing, gardens so precisely maintained they looked hostile. Clara gripped the steering wheel of her dying Honda and tried to remember how to breathe. The GPS had led her 20 minutes outside the city, up roads that grew progressively narrower and emptier, until civilization felt like something she'd imagined. A man in a black suit appeared at her car door before she'd even turned off the engine. No smile, no greeting. "Miss Hayes?" "Yes, I'm—" "Follow me." He turned and walked toward a side entrance without checking if she followed. Clara grabbed her purse, locked her car out of habit, though who exactly she thought might steal it here she couldn't say, and hurried after him. The inside was worse than the outside. Colder. Everything was marble and dark wood and the kind of silence that made her own breathing sound obscene. Their footsteps echoed down hallways lined with paintings she didn't recognize but suspected cost more than her entire neighborhood. No family photos, no personal touches, just art that felt like surveillance. "Mr. Voss is unavailable," the man said, leading her through a kitchen that looked like it had never seen actual cooking. "Mrs. Chen will explain your duties. You'll begin today." "Today? I thought this was just an interview." "You submitted your application, you provided references, you passed the background check." He stopped at a door, knocked twice. "You're hired." Before Clara could process that, an older woman emerged. Mrs. Chen was tiny, barely 5 feet, with silver hair pulled into a bun so tight it looked painful. Her eyes were sharp, assessing, the kind that missed nothing. "So you're the new one," she said. Not unkindly, but not warmly either. "Come, we don't have much time." The tour happened at double speed. Ground floor, kitchen, dining room, library, study, sitting rooms. Claire couldn't imagine anyone actually sitting in. Second floor, guest bedrooms, each decorated in variations of the same cold elegance. Third floor. "You don't go to the third floor," Mrs. Chen said firmly. "Mr. Voss's private quarters. Off limits. Understood?" "Understood." "You don't enter his study without permission. You don't answer his phone. You don't speak to visitors unless spoken to first." Mrs. Chen's voice had taken on a rhythmic quality, like she'd given this speech before, many times before. "You don't ask questions about his business. You don't mention anything you see or hear to anyone outside this house. Ever." Clara nodded, her stomach tightening with each rule. "And you don't, under any circumstances, acknowledge his birthday." That one stopped her. "What?" Mrs. Chen's expression didn't change. "November 1st. If he's here, you pretend it's a day like any other. No cards, no cakes, no well wishes, nothing. Are we clear?" "Yes, clear." "Good." Mrs. Chen handed her an apron. "Your primary responsibility is maintaining the ground floor. Deep cleaning rotation happens monthly. I'll provide the schedule. Mr. Voss doesn't tolerate dust, disorder, or disturbance. He notices everything." Over the next 4 hours, Clara learned that everything meant everything. The books in the library had to be aligned exactly flush with the shelf edge. The newspapers in the study had to be pressed flat, arranged by date, sections in a specific order. Even the firewood in the sitting room had to be stacked with the cut ends facing out, each log the same diameter. It wasn't housekeeping, it was maintenance of a museum dedicated to control. Does he actually live here? Clara asked, wiping down a kitchen counter that already gleamed. Or is this just for show? Mrs. Chen gave her a look that could have frozen water. Mr. Voss values his privacy. You do well to respect that. Right, sorry. But as the days passed, Clara started to notice things. Coffee cups that appeared in the study sink, always rinsed, but still. A jacket draped over a chair that hadn't been there the night before. The faint smell of cologne in the library on Wednesday mornings. Someone lived here. Someone moved through these rooms like a ghost, careful to leave no real trace. She never saw him. 2 weeks in, she asked Mrs. Chen directly, "When do I meet Mr. Voss?" "You don't." "But I work in his house. He travels frequently. When he's here, he prefers solitude." Mrs. Chen didn't look up from the vegetables she was chopping for a meal Clara suspected no one would eat. "That's why you were hired. The previous girl talked too much, asked too many questions." "What happened to her?" The knife paused. "She found other employment." The way she said it made Clara's skin prickle. She didn't ask again, but she wondered. Late at night, driving home to the apartment she shared with her mother and younger brother, Clara wondered who exactly Lucian Voss was. The name had felt vaguely familiar when she'd first seen the job posting, tickling the back of her memory like something she should recognize but couldn't quite place. One night, she Googled him. The results made her blood run cold. Lucian Voss. Real estate developer, the article said. Philanthropist. Major donor to the city's art museum and children's hospital. But there were other articles too, buried deeper. Investigations that went nowhere. Businesses that collapsed under mysterious circumstances. Competitors who suddenly left town. And always the phrase that appeared in comment sections and true crime forums, connected to organized crime. Clara closed her laptop so hard it cracked. She should quit. She should walk away from the excellent pay and the strange rules and the house that felt like a beautiful trap. But then her mother's pharmacy bill would come, and her brother's college tuition was due next month, and rent was always waiting. So she stayed. She stayed and she cleaned and she tried not to think about what kind of man required this level of secrecy. She stayed and learned the house's rhythms, Mrs. Chen arriving at 6, the gardeners on Tuesdays and Fridays, the man in the black suit who appeared irregularly and never gave his name. She stayed and counted down the days until her first paycheck, which arrived exactly on time. More money than she'd made in 3 months at her last job. Blood money, maybe. But money that kept the lights on. October bled into November. Clara knew what November 1st meant, but only because Mrs. Chen had warned her. She didn't know why it mattered, didn't know what had happened to make a birthday something forbidden. She just knew the rule. Pretend it's normal. Treat it like any other day. She intended to do exactly that. But the problem with cleaning someone's house for 3 weeks is that you start to feel responsible for it. You start to notice things that need fixing, like the bulb that had burned out in the hallway, or the flowers in the foyer that were dying because no one had changed the water, or the fact that November 1st fell on a Friday this year, which meant Mrs. Chen would leave early for her grandson's school play. Clara should have left early too, should have finished her cleaning checklist and gotten out before dark. But there was a stain on the library carpet, red wine maybe, or blood, her mind supplied unhelpfully, and she couldn't leave it. So she stayed late, scrubbing until her knees ached, and the stain finally surrendered. By the time she finished, night had fallen completely. The house felt different in the dark, larger, more aware. She gathered her supplies quickly, ready to get out. That's when she saw the calendar in the kitchen. November 1st marked with nothing, just another square in an endless grid of days. And sitting on the counter beside it, forgotten or ignored, was a small bakery box. Clara opened it before she could think better of it. A birthday cake. Chocolate with simple white frosting. A single candle. Someone had ordered it. Someone had brought it here and then, what? Changed their mind? Mrs. Chen had been so firm about the rule. But the cake was here. Real. Already paid for. Clara stared at it for a long moment. Then she did something monumentally stupid. She lit the candle. Her reasoning went like this. The cake would go to waste otherwise. Someone, maybe Mrs. Chen, maybe one of the staff Clara never met, had clearly intended it as a gesture, a small kindness. And what kind of person didn't acknowledge their own birthday? What kind of life was so controlled, so rigid, that a cake was forbidden. She found a tray, arranged the cake with a clean fork and a napkin, carried it down the hallway toward the study where she'd seen lights earlier, where someone had been drinking coffee that morning. Her hands were shaking. "This is stupid," a voice in her head screamed. Incredibly, dangerously stupid. But she'd already committed, already crossed the threshold from employee to something else. Already decided that rules designed to keep someone isolated weren't rules worth following. She knocked on the study door. No answer. She knocked again, heard nothing, and carefully pushed it open. The room was empty. Dark except for the city lights visible through the windows. She'd imagined someone working late, and she'd bring in the cake, and maybe it would be a good thing, a human thing. Clara set the tray on the desk, the candle flame reflected in the polished wood. She should blow it out. Should take the whole thing back to the kitchen and pretend this never happened. Instead, she stood there like an idiot, staring at a birthday cake for a man she'd never met. The door opened behind her. Clara spun around, her heart launching into her throat. He stood in the doorway, and the first thought that crashed through her mind was, oh. Lucian Voss was nothing like she'd imagined. Younger, for one, maybe late 30s, though his eyes looked older. Tall, lean, dressed in a black shirt with the sleeves rolled up and slacks that probably cost more than her car. Dark hair pushed back carelessly. A face that might have been handsome if it weren't so completely, utterly devoid of emotion. He looked at the cake, then at her. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. "Who are you?" His voice was quiet. That made it worse somehow. "Clara Hayes. I'm your housekeeper. I started 3 weeks ago." The words tumbled out too fast. "I found the cake in the kitchen, and I thought..." "You thought?" He stepped into the room, and Clara's body screamed at her to move, to run, but her feet had become part of the floor. "You thought you'd bring me a birthday cake." "I'm sorry, I didn't realize. Mrs. Chen told me not to, but I found it already here, and I thought maybe someone had ordered it and forgotten, and it seemed wrong to just throw it away." "Get out!" The words were so soft she almost didn't hear them. Almost. "Mr. Voss, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean..." "Get out!" Louder now, not shouting, but carved from ice and absolute certainty. "You're fired. I want you gone in 5 minutes. If you're still on this property in 6, I'll have you arrested for trespassing." Clara's vision blurred. "Please, I need this job. I didn't know I'm..." "5 minutes." He turned his back on her, staring out the window at the city below, dismissing her as thoroughly as if she'd ceased to exist. "Mrs. Chen will mail your final check. Don't come back." She ran. Down the hallway, past the perfectly aligned books, and the spotless marble, and the paintings worth more than her life. She grabbed her purse from the kitchen, her hands shaking so badly she could barely grip it. 4 minutes. She had 4 minutes to get off the property before he called whoever he called when he wanted problems to disappear. Her car started on the 3rd try. The gates opened automatically as she approached, and then she was on the road, flying down the dark hillside too fast, her eyes burning with tears she refused to let fall. Stupid. 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 She'd lost the best-paying job she'd ever had because she'd tried to be nice. Because she'd seen a birthday cake and thought a basic act of human decency was more important than the rules. By the time she got home, the tears had won. She sat in her car in the parking lot of her building and sobbed into her hands, thinking about the bills she couldn't pay now, about her mother's medication she couldn't afford, about how she'd have to tell her family she'd been fired for something so incredibly foolish. Clara dragged herself upstairs eventually. Her mother was asleep. The pain medication did that. Her brother Danny was at his night shift at the campus library. The apartment was dark and quiet and felt like a cage. She collapsed onto her bed, fully clothed, and stared at the ceiling, replaying the moment over and over. The look on Lucian Voss's face. The absolute zero of his voice. The way he'd turned his back like she was nothing. "What happened to you?" she thought. Not about herself, but about him. What kind of person can't accept a birthday cake? She fell asleep with that question unanswered, her phone alarm set for 6 a.m. so she could start job hunting before her family woke up and asked why she was home. Lucian Voss stood in his study for 20 minutes after Clara Hayes left, staring at the birthday cake like it might explode. The candle had burned down. Wax dripped onto the frosting in small white rivers. The whole thing looked pathetic now. Sad. He should throw it away. should call building services to remove it, should pretend the last 20 minutes hadn't happened. Instead, he reached out and touched the edge of the plate. Elena. The name crashed through him like it always did, bringing everything with it. Her smile, her laugh, the way she used to bake him birthday cakes from scratch, chocolate with white frosting, exactly like this one. The way she'd light a candle and sing off key and make him feel like a person instead of a weapon. 7 years. 7 years since the car accident that wasn't an accident. 7 years since he'd buried her and built walls so high nothing could reach him. 7 years since he'd let himself feel anything beyond the cold calculation required to run an empire built on fear. And some girl, some housekeeper who'd been here 3 weeks, had waltzed into his study with a birthday cake and broken every rule specifically designed to prevent this. Lucian sat down heavily in his chair. He'd fired her. Of course he'd fired her. That's what you did with problems. You eliminated them quickly, cleanly, before they could grow. But sitting here now, alone in the dark with a melting birthday cake, he felt something he hadn't felt in 7 years. Regret. She'd been trying to be kind, that's all. She'd seen a cake and thought someone should acknowledge his birthday, rules be damned. It was naive and foolish and exactly the sort of thing Elena would have done. Lucian pulled out his phone, pulled up the personnel file. Clara Hayes, 26. No criminal record. Renting an apartment in the South District with her mother and younger brother. Working 2 other part-time jobs before this one. Reference letters that used words like reliable, thorough, kind. He shouldn't care. He'd made his decision. But his hand was still on the plate. And the study suddenly felt too quiet, too empty, too much like a tomb he'd built for himself. You're becoming a monster, Elena had told him once, near the end. Be careful you don't forget how to be human. He'd forgotten. Or maybe he'd chosen to forget. It was easier that way, safer. You couldn't lose what you never let yourself have. Lucian looked at the phone in his hand, looked at the cake, thought about a girl with frightened eyes running out of his house because he'd chosen cruelty over kindness. Then he did something he never did. He called his head of security. Victor, I need you to find someone. Clara woke up to her phone ringing at 3 a.m. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something, instinct or desperation, made her pick up. Hello? Miss Hayes, this is Victor Chen, head of security for Lucian Voss. Her stomach dropped. If this is about trespassing charges, it's not. A pause. Mr. Voss would like to speak with you, in person, tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. I don't understand. Neither do I, Victor said, and he sounded genuine. But when he makes a request, I fulfill it. Will you be there? Clara sat up, her mind racing. This was a trap. Had to be. Men like Lucian Voss didn't just invite fired employees back for coffee. What does he want? He didn't say, but I suspect... Victor's voice softened slightly. I suspect it might be an apology. The line went dead. Clara stared at her phone, her heart hammering. An apology. From a man who'd looked at her like she was dirt on his expensive shoes. She should say no. Should block the number and forget the Voss mansion and everyone in it. But that word, apology, kept echoing. And underneath her fear, underneath the rational voice screaming that this was dangerous, was something else. Curiosity. The same impulse that had made her light the candle in the first place. What kind of person can't accept a birthday cake? Maybe she was about to find out. Clara set her alarm for 7. She'd go. She'd listen to whatever Lucian Voss had to say, and then she'd decide if a man who lived in a fortress of rules deserved a second chance. Or if she should run and never look back. Clara wore the same black pants and white blouse she'd worn to her original interview because it was the only professional outfit she owned that didn't have coffee stains. She stood outside the iron gates at 8:55, her phone showing 3 missed calls from Danny asking where she was going so early, and tried to convince herself this wasn't the dumbest decision she'd ever made. The gate swung open without her touching the intercom. She drove up the hill slower this time, noticing things she'd been too nervous to see before. The cameras tucked into the trees, the way the driveway curved to prevent anyone from seeing the house until the last moment. The complete absence of neighbors, of witnesses, of anyone who might hear you scream. Stop it, she told herself. You're being paranoid. But her hands were sweating on the steering wheel. Victor Chen met her at the same side entrance. He looked exactly like his voice had sounded on the phone, mid-50s, compact, with the kind of stillness that suggested violence was always an option, but rarely necessary. "Miss Hayes, thank you for coming. Did I have a choice?" Something that might have been respect flickered across his face. "There's always a choice. Mr. Voss is in the garden, this way." The garden. She'd seen it from the windows, but never actually walked through it. In daylight, it was stunning. Geometric hedges, stone pathways, a fountain that probably cost more than her mother's surgery. Everything precise, everything controlled. Lucian Voss stood with his back to her, looking at something Clara couldn't see. He wore jeans today, which somehow made him seem more dangerous, not less, like he'd stopped pretending to be civilized. Victor coughed softly. "Sir, Miss Hayes is here." Lucian turned around and Clara's stomach did something complicated. He looked tired. That was the first thing she noticed. Not angry, not cold, just exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days. "Thank you, Victor. Leave us." "Sir, it's fine." Lucian's voice was quieter than she remembered. "I'm not going to hurt her." Victor hesitated, then nodded and walked back toward the house. Clara watched him go and felt suddenly acutely aware that she was alone with a man who people whispered about in the same breath as organized crime. "You came," Lucian said. "You called at 3 a.m. I figured it was important." "It is." He gestured to a bench near the fountain. "Please, sit." Clara sat because her knees were shaking and she didn't want him to notice. Lucian remained standing, hands in his pockets, looking anywhere but at her. "I owe you an apology," he said finally. "What I said last night, how I reacted, was unacceptable." She blinked. Of all the things she'd expected, that wasn't one of them. "Okay, it wasn't your fault. You didn't know." He paused and something crossed his face, pain maybe, or memory. "November 1st is difficult for me. Has been for 7 years. I don't celebrate it, don't acknowledge it. Mrs. Chen knows this. Everyone who works for me knows this." "She told me not to bring you anything," Clara admitted. I found the cake and I thought someone had forgotten it, and it seemed wasteful." "It was ordered by mistake. A new caterer who didn't have the updated notes." Lucian finally looked at her, and his eyes were a blue so pale they were almost gray. "But that's not your responsibility. You were trying to do something kind, and He stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. "I punished you for it." Clara didn't know what to say. She'd expected threats, maybe legal action, possibly something worse. Not this, not a man who looked like he was physically forcing himself to be vulnerable. "My wife died 7 years ago today," Lucian said quietly. "Car accident. She used to bake me birthday cakes. Chocolate with white frosting, every year." His jaw tightened. "When I saw what you'd brought, I wasn't seeing you. I was seeing her. And it hurt too much." The fountain burbled in the silence. Claire's throat felt tight. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know." "How could you?" Lucian sat down on the bench, careful to leave space between them. "I've built my entire life around making sure no one knows anything about me. It's safer that way, cleaner. But it also means I've become..." He exhaled roughly. "Someone I don't particularly like." Clara studied his profile. The sharp line of his jaw. The tension in his shoulders. He looked like a man holding himself together through sheer force of will. "Why did you call me here?" she asked. "To apologize. And to offer you your job back if you want it." He turned to face her, "with a significant raise, and my word that I won't fire you for trying to be human." "That's it?" "What else would there be?" Clara laughed. The sound startled out of her. "I don't know. I spent half the night convinced you were going to have me killed or something." Lucian's expression didn't change. "I don't kill housekeepers, Miss Hayes. I'm not that far gone." "Yet," she said, before she could stop herself. This time, something that might have been amusement touched his mouth. "Yet," he agreed. They sat in silence for a moment. Clara tried to reconcile the man beside her with the monster she'd Googled. He'd just told her about his dead wife, had apologized, was offering her a second chance. But the articles hadn't been wrong, had they? The investigations, the whispers, the competitors who disappeared, those were real. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "You can ask." I may not answer. Are you dangerous? Lucian considered this. Yes. To me? No. He said it with absolute certainty. Never to you. Why not? Because you brought me a birthday cake. He stood up, brushing invisible dust from his jeans. Because in 7 years, you're the first person who tried to make me feel like a human being instead of... He stopped, shook his head. You have no idea what you did last night, how much it cost you to do something that stupid and kind. I lost my job. You reminded me I used to have a heart. Lucian looked down at her, and his eyes were old and sad and somehow still terrifying. That's worth more than you know, so will you come back? Clara thought about her mother's medication, about Danny's tuition, about the electricity bill that was overdue, and the car that needed new tires and the 1,000 small emergencies that money could solve. But she also thought about the house, cold and perfect and empty, about rules designed to keep someone isolated, about a man who'd built walls so high he couldn't remember how to let anyone in. I have conditions, she heard herself say. Lucian's eyebrows rose slightly. Conditions. You don't get to yell at me. Ever. I don't care how bad your day is or what I accidentally did wrong. You treat me with respect or I walk. She stood up, forcing herself to meet his eyes. And you eat actual food. Real meals. I've been cleaning your kitchen for 3 weeks and I've never seen evidence that anyone actually cooks. I have a chef. Who makes food you don't eat? I've seen the garbage, Mr. Voss. Mrs. Chen's preparing beautiful meals and you're throwing them away. Clara crossed her arms. So if I come back, I'm cooking. Simple stuff. Nothing fancy. But you're going to sit down and eat it like a normal person. That's not in the job description. Then change the job description. They stared at each other. Clara's heart was hammering so hard she was sure he could hear it. She'd just given an ultimatum to a man who probably had people killed for less. But she was so tired of being scared, so tired of pretending men like him could treat people however they wanted. Lucian smiled, actually smiled. It transformed his face completely. Deal, he said, and held out his hand. Clara shook it. His grip was firm, warm, and gone too quickly. When can you start? He asked. I never technically stopped. You just fired me. She picked up her purse. I'll be back Monday. And Mr. Voss, next year on November 1st, I'm bringing you a cake anyway, just so you know. She walked away before he could respond, feeling his eyes on her back the entire way to her car. It wasn't until she was through the gates and halfway down the hill that she started shaking. What had she just done? Clara pulled over and gripped the steering wheel, breathing hard. She'd just negotiated with a man who scared his own staff, had demanded he eat her cooking, had told him she'd deliberately break his most important rule next year, and he'd smiled. She started laughing, slightly hysterical, and couldn't stop for 5 full minutes. When she got home, Danny was in the kitchen making toast. He took one look at her face and said, What happened? I got my job back. The one you got fired from yesterday? That's the one. Danny waited, but Clara just grabbed a piece of his toast and headed for her room. She had 3 days before Monday. 3 days to figure out what the hell she'd gotten herself into. She spent Saturday researching recipes, simple things that looked impressive. Roasted chicken, pasta with fresh tomatoes, soup that didn't come from a can. She'd learned to cook from her grandmother before she died, back when cooking was about making something with love instead of just fuel. Maybe that's what Lucian Voss needed. Not a chef preparing restaurant-quality meals he'd never touch. Just someone making food that felt like care. Sunday, she went to the farmer's market and spent too much money on vegetables and good bread and a whole chicken that the vendor promised was the best in the city. She cooked a practice meal for her mother and Danny, watching anxiously as they ate. This is really good, her mother said, surprised. When did you get so fancy? I'm not fancy, it's just chicken. It's delicious, Danny said through a mouthful. Your boss is going to love it. Clara hoped he was right, but she kept remembering the empty kitchen, the untouched meals, the man who'd built his life around control and isolation. You couldn't fix that with roasted chicken, but maybe you could start. Monday morning arrived too fast. Clara drove up the hill with a bag of groceries in her passenger seat and her stomach in knots. Mrs. Chen was waiting in the kitchen, her expression unreadable. So you came back? Mr. Voss invited me. Invited? Mrs. Chen's mouth twitched. Is that what we're calling it? She gestured to the groceries. What's all this? I'm making dinner for Mr. Voss. Mrs. Chen stared at her like she'd announced plans to set the house on fire. He doesn't eat here. He does now. It was part of our agreement. Agreement. Mrs. Chen said the word carefully, like she was testing it for explosives. You made an agreement with Lucian Voss. Is that a problem? Child, do you have any idea who you're working for? Clara set the groceries on the counter. I know he's dangerous. I know people are scared of him. I know he's probably done things I don't want to think about. She started unpacking vegetables. I also know he's a widower who hasn't let himself feel anything in 7 years. And I think that's sad. Mrs. Chen was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. His wife was a good woman, kind. She made him better. She picked up a tomato, examining it. After she died, he became empty, like someone had scooped out everything that mattered and left just the shell. What was her name? Elena. Mrs. Chen smiled slightly. She would have liked you. You have the same stubborn streak. Clara didn't know what to say to that. She focused on washing vegetables, on the simple rhythm of preparation. Mrs. Chen watched for a moment, then started helping without being asked, peeling garlic, chopping onions, moving around the kitchen with practiced ease. They worked in companionable silence. It felt good, normal, like the house was waking up after a long sleep. At 6 o'clock, Clara heard the front door open. Footsteps in the hallway. Her heart jumped into her throat. Lucian appeared in the kitchen doorway and stopped, staring at the two women cooking like he'd walked into the wrong house. What's this? Dinner, Clara said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. You're home, right? So we're eating. I usually work through dinner. Not tonight. She pulled the chicken from the oven, and the smell filled the kitchen, rosemary and garlic, and something that made the house feel alive. Tonight you sit down and eat like a normal person. That was the deal. Lucian looked at Mrs. Chen, who shrugged. Don't look at me. The girl's terrifying. Something complicated crossed his face. Then he pulled out a chair at the kitchen table and sat down. Clara nearly dropped the chicken. Mrs. Chen served, moving with efficient grace, and then excused herself with a knowing look that made Clara's cheeks burn. Suddenly it was just her and Lucian Voss in the kitchen, with a roasted chicken between them like some kind of absurd peace offering. I don't usually eat in the kitchen, Lucian said. Where do you usually eat? I don't. Clara cut into the chicken, plated it with roasted vegetables and bread, set it in front of him. Their fingers brushed when she handed him a fork, and she pulled back too quickly. Eat, she said. He did. And for a moment, watching him take that first bite, Clara forgot to be afraid, forgot about the articles and the whispers and the danger. She just saw a man who'd been alone too long, tasting something made with care. It's good, he said quietly. Don't sound so surprised. I'm not. I'm just... He stopped, shook his head. When was the last time someone cooked for me? Mrs. Chen cooks for you every day. That's different. She's staff. This is... He gestured vaguely at the table. This feels like something else. Clara sat down across from him with her own plate. It's just dinner. Nothing with you is just anything, Miss Hayes. They ate in silence for a while. It should have been awkward, sitting in a mansion kitchen with a man she barely knew, a man who scared everyone who met him. But it wasn't. It felt oddly peaceful, like they'd stumbled into a pocket of normalcy neither of them knew how to handle. Tell me about your family, Lucian said suddenly. Clara looked up, surprised. Why? Because I've been thinking about you for 3 days and I realized I know nothing except that you're brave and foolish in equal measure. I'm not brave. You told me to eat your cooking or you'd quit. That's either brave or suicidal. He took another bite. Your file says you live with your mother and brother. Danny, he's 20, studying engineering at State College, works nights at the campus library to help with tuition. Clara pushed vegetables around her plate. My mom has chronic pain from a car accident 5 years ago. She can't work much, so it's mostly on me and Danny to keep things together. And your father? Gone. Left when I was 16. Haven't heard from him since. Lucian nodded slowly. So you're the one holding everything up. Someone has to. That's a heavy burden for 26. Yeah, well. Clara met his eyes. We all carry things. At least mine are people I love. The words hung between them. Lucian set down his fork, and for a moment he looked lost. Then he said, Elena used to say something similar, that the weight of love was better than the emptiness of freedom. She sounds wise. She was. His voice went rough. She saw things in me I couldn't see myself, made me want to be better than I was. When she died, He stopped, jaw working. I stopped trying. Clara reached across the table without thinking, covering his hand with hers. He went still, staring at their joined hands like he'd forgotten what touch felt like. Maybe you could start again, she said softly. I wouldn't know how. Start small. Eat dinner with another human being. That's something. Lucian turned his hand over, threading his fingers through hers. His palm was warm, calloused in places she hadn't expected. Is this appropriate? Holding hands with your employer? Probably not. Should we stop? Clara considered. Every rational part of her brain screamed yes. This was her boss, a dangerous man, someone she should keep at arm's length, but his hand felt solid and real and desperately lonely. Not yet, she whispered. They stayed like that until the food went cold, until Mrs. Chen returned and cleared her throat loudly, making them spring apart like guilty teenagers, until the moment broke and Clara had to go home, leaving Lucian sitting alone in the kitchen with the ghost of her hand still warm in his. Driving down the hill that night, Clara couldn't stop thinking about the way he'd looked at their joined hands, like she'd given him something precious and fragile, like he was terrified of breaking it. She was in so much trouble. The next few weeks developed a rhythm that felt dangerous in its normalcy. Clara would arrive at 8, clean the house with Mrs. Chen until 5, then cook dinner. Most nights, Lucian was there. He'd sit at the kitchen table with his laptop, working while she chopped vegetables, and they'd talk about nothing important. Books, weather, the stray cat that kept appearing in the garden. They never talked about his work, never mentioned the black SUVs that sometimes pulled up at odd hours, or the men in expensive suits who met him in the study. Clara learned to recognize the signs. When he came home with tension in his shoulders and shadows in his eyes, she'd make something simple and comforting. Soup, grilled cheese, things that tasted like care instead of pity. He never asked her to do it. Never demanded anything beyond her original job description, but he always ate what she made, always stayed to talk while she cleaned up, always looked at her like she was solving some equation he couldn't quite figure out. You're staring again, Clara said one night, washing dishes while he sat at the table. Sorry. Don't apologize, just tell me why. Lucian was quiet for a moment. You're not afraid of me. Should I be? Most people are. Clara dried her hands, turned to face him. I think you want people to be afraid. It's safer that way. Easier to control. She leaned against the counter. But I'm not most people. No, he said softly. You're really not. Something shifted in the air between them. Clara felt it like static electricity, raising the hair on her arms. Lucian stood up, crossed the kitchen in 3 long strides, and stopped just close enough that she could feel the heat of him. This is a terrible idea, he said. What is? This. You. Everything I'm thinking right now. Clara's heart hammered. Then stop thinking. He laughed, short and pained. If it were that easy. But he didn't move away. Didn't stop looking at her like she was water and he was dying of thirst. You should go home. It's only 8. Clara. Her name in his mouth sounded like prayer and curse combined. You need to go home before I do something we'll both regret. She should have been afraid. Should have run. But she was tired of running, tired of being sensible, tired of pretending she didn't feel the pull between them like gravity. What if I don't regret it? She whispered. Lucian closed his eyes. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. You know nothing about me, about what I've done, what I'm capable of. Then tell me. She stepped closer. Tell me the worst thing you've ever done. Give me a reason to be afraid. He opened his eyes, and they were anguished. I've killed people, Clara. Not directly, maybe, but my orders, my decisions. People have died because of me. I've ruined lives, destroyed families, built an empire on blood and fear. His voice dropped. And the worst part is, I'd do it all again to protect what's mine. Clara should have run, should have called the police or quit or done literally anything except step even closer. Are you trying to scare me? She asked. Yes. It's not working. Then you're an idiot. Probably. She reached up, touched his face. He flinched like she'd burned him. But I'm an idiot who sees you, Lucian. Not the monster you pretend to be. You. He caught her wrist, held it tight enough to hurt. And if the monster is real, then I'll deal with it. She pulled her hand free, stepped back. But right now, you're just a man who needs someone to care if he eats dinner. That's not so scary. She grabbed her coat and left before he could respond, before she could do something really stupid like kiss him or promise things she couldn't deliver, before the moment could become something irreversible. But driving home that night, she couldn't stop shaking, not from fear, from something much more dangerous. She was falling for Lucian Voss. Despite everything she knew, everything he'd admitted, she was falling hard and fast and irrevocably, and she had no idea how to stop. The next morning, Clara showed up to work and found flowers on the kitchen counter. Not roses, those would have been too obvious, too scripted. Instead, wildflowers in a mason jar, the kind that grew on hillsides and didn't cost anything except the effort of picking them. Mrs. Chen was already there, eyeing the flowers like they might explode. He went out at dawn, she said without preamble. Came back with those, put them right there and disappeared upstairs. Clara touched one of the petals. It was still damp with dew. Don't, Mrs. Chen warned. Don't what? Whatever you're thinking, don't. The older woman's voice was sharp with something that sounded like fear. I've worked for him for 5 years. I've seen what happens to people who get too close. It never ends well. He's not going to hurt me. That's not what I'm worried about. Mrs. Chen started preparing vegetables with more force than necessary. Men like Lucian Voss, they don't just have enemies, they are the enemy, and the people around them become targets. Clara's stomach went cold. What do you mean? I mean, his wife didn't die in a random car accident. I mean, the previous housekeeper quit because someone followed her home and left a dead bird on her doorstep. I mean, you're dancing on the edge of something you don't understand, and when you fall, because you will fall, it's going to hurt more than just you. The flowers suddenly looked sinister. Clara pulled her hand back. Why are you telling me this now? Because I like you. And because I'm tired of watching good people get destroyed by proximity to power they never asked for. Mrs. Chen finally looked at her. Go home, Clara. Find another job. Forget about him. I can't. Can't or won't. Clara didn't answer. Because the truth was, she didn't know anymore. Couldn't implied impossibility. Won't implied choice. And somewhere between those two words was whatever this thing with Lucian had become. She went about her work mechanically, cleaning rooms that were already spotless, organizing things that didn't need organizing. Lucian didn't appear all morning, didn't come down for lunch. At 2 o'clock, Victor showed up and went straight upstairs, emerging 20 minutes later with his jaw tight. He wants to see you, Victor said. In his study. Clara's heart stuttered. In 5 weeks of working here, she'd never been summoned to the study, never been asked to go upstairs during work hours. This felt significant. Wrong. Why? He didn't share that information with me. She climbed the stairs slowly, each step feeling like a mistake. The second floor was familiar territory now. Guest rooms she dusted weekly, bathrooms she scrubbed every Friday. But the third floor was still forbidden. She'd never broken that rule. Until now. The study door was open. Lucian stood at the windows overlooking the garden, his back to her, wearing a suit that probably cost more than her rent. He looked every inch the dangerous man everyone warned her about. Close the door, he said without turning. Clara did, her hands shaking slightly. The flowers, she started, were a mistake. He turned around and his face was carefully blank. I'm sorry, that was inappropriate. Oh. The word came out smaller than she intended. This, whatever this is between us, it needs to stop. His voice was steady, controlled, nothing like the warmth from last night. You're my employee. I'm your employer. We had dinner together a few times, that's all. Clara felt something crack in her chest. That's all? That's all it can be. Why? Because Mrs. Chen told me people who get close to you become targets? Because your wife was killed by your enemies? Because I'm not allowed to care about you without risking my life? Lucian's jaw tightened. She had no right to tell you that. But it's true. He didn't answer, which was answer enough. Clara crossed her arms, fighting to keep her voice level. So what? You're going to push me away for my own safety? That's very noble and also complete garbage. Excuse me? You heard me. This whole tortured protector thing. I'm too dangerous. You need to leave. I'm doing this for your own good. It's a coward's way out. She stepped closer, anger overriding fear. If you don't want me here, if you don't feel what I feel, just say it. But don't hide behind protecting me like that makes you some kind of hero. You have no idea what you're talking about. Then explain it to me. Tell me exactly how caring about you is going to get me killed. Give me specifics instead of vague warnings. Lucian moved so fast she didn't see it coming. Suddenly, he was right there, inches away, his hands gripping her shoulders hard enough to hurt. You want specifics? Fine. 3 years ago, I had a girlfriend. Elena had been dead 4 years, and I thought maybe I could try again. Her name was Sophie. She was a gallery owner, smart, independent, nothing to do with my business. We dated for 2 months before someone planted a bomb in her car. His fingers dug into her shoulders. She survived. Barely. Lost her left leg below the knee. Moved to Europe and won't even say my name anymore. Clara couldn't breathe. 2 years before that, I had a business partner who got too close, who I trusted too much. They used him to get to me, kidnapped him, tortured him for information, left him in an alley missing 3 fingers and most of his sanity. Lucian's eyes were wild now, all the control stripped away. And Elena, my wife, the woman I loved more than my own life, they ran her off the road because I made a deal someone didn't like. So when I say you need to leave, when I say this can't happen, I'm not being noble. I'm trying to keep you alive. He let go of her and stepped back, breathing hard. Clara's shoulders ached where his hands had been. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't know. Of course you didn't know. I don't talk about it. I don't think about it if I can help it. He ran a hand through his hair, destroying its careful style. I just try to keep everyone at a distance so this doesn't happen again. But it's happening anyway. Yes. The word came out broken. Despite everything I know, everything I've learned, I can't stop thinking about you, can't stop wanting you here. And that makes you a liability I can't afford. Clara should have run then, should have taken the warning and gotten as far from Lucian Voss as possible, but she'd never been good at self-preservation. What if I don't care about the risk? Then you're a fool. Probably. She moved closer, watching him tense. But I've been a fool before. At least this time it's for something that matters. Clara, no, you've said your piece. Now I get to say mine. She took a breath. I know you're dangerous. I know people around you get hurt. I know I should pack up and never come back. But here's the thing. I've spent my whole life playing it safe, taking care of my family, working jobs I hate, never asking for anything I actually want. And for once, just once, I want something for myself, even if it's complicated, even if it's stupid, even if it scares the hell out of me. Lucian stared at her like she'd lost her mind. You're not making sense. I'm making perfect sense. You're just not listening. She reached up, cupped his face in her hands before he could pull away. I see you, Lucian. Not the monster everyone's afraid of, not the killer you think you are. I see a man who picks wildflowers at dawn because he doesn't know how else to say sorry. A man who eats dinner in the kitchen instead of the formal dining room because it feels less lonely. A man who's been punishing himself for 7 years for something that wasn't his fault. You don't understand. Then help me understand. Stop pushing me away and let me in. Let me decide if the risk is worth it. For a long moment, he just looked at her. Then he pulled her hands away from his face, but he didn't let go. Just held them between his own, staring at their joined fingers. If something happens to you because of me, he said quietly, I won't survive it. I barely survived losing Elena. If I lost you, he stopped, swallowed hard. I can't do that again. So don't lose me. Keep me safe. That's what all those security cameras and gates and guards are for, right? It's not enough. It's never enough. Then what do you want me to do? Quit? Disappear? Pretend I don't feel this? She pulled one hand free, pressed it over his heart. Because I don't think I can. Lucian closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, something had shifted. Some wall had cracked. This is the worst decision I've ever made. Probably. You're infuriating. You're terrified. Yes. He pulled her closer, his hand settling on her waist. I'm absolutely terrified. Then he kissed her. It wasn't gentle or sweet or any of the things Clara had imagined. It was desperate and fierce and tasted like 7 years of loneliness finally breaking open. His hands tangled in her hair and she grabbed his jacket and they collided like they'd been moving toward this moment since the night she'd brought him that stupid birthday cake. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Clara's back was against the desk and Lucian looked wrecked. "This is a terrible idea," he said against her mouth. "You keep saying that." "Because it's true." "Then stop kissing me." He kissed her again instead, slower this time, like he was memorizing the shape of her. Clara felt something shift and settle in her chest, some piece clicking into place that she hadn't known was missing. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. "If we do this, if we try this, there are rules." "Of course there are." "I'm serious, Clara. You don't go anywhere without Victor or one of my men. You don't tell anyone about us. Your family, your friends, no one can know." It's not negotiable. The moment people know you matter to me, you become a target. So either we keep this secret or we end it now. Clara wanted to argue, wanted to say that hiding felt like shame, like he was embarrassed of her. But she saw the fear in his eyes and understood. This wasn't about shame, it was about survival. "Okay," she said, "we keep it secret. And if anything feels wrong, if anyone approaches you, if you notice anything strange, you tell me immediately." "Lucian, promise me." She saw the ghost of Elena in his eyes, the memory of Sophie, all the people he'd failed to protect. "I promise." He kissed her forehead, gentle this time. "I should let you go back to work." "Probably." Neither of them moved. Finally, Clara forced herself to step back, smoothing her hair and trying to look like she hadn't just been thoroughly kissed by her employer. Lucian watched her with something soft in his eyes, something that made her chest ache. "Dinner tonight?" she asked. "I have a meeting at 7. Then I'll have food waiting when you get back." "You don't have to." "I know." She touched his face one more time just because she could now. "But I want to." She left before he could argue, before she could change her mind, before the reality of what they'd just started could overwhelm her. Mrs. Chen was in the kitchen when she got downstairs, and the look the older woman gave her said she knew exactly what had happened. "Don't say it," Clara warned. "Wasn't going to." Mrs. Chen handed her a knife and a cutting board. "But when this goes wrong, and it will go wrong, don't say I didn't warn you." "Noted." They worked in silence for a while. Clara tried to focus on chopping vegetables, on the simple task in front of her, but her mind kept drifting back to the study, to Lucian's hands in her hair, to the way he'd looked at her like she was something precious and breakable. "He really cares about you," Mrs. Chen said suddenly. "I can see it. Haven't seen him care about anything in years. Is that a good thing?" "I don't know yet." Mrs. Chen took the knife from her, started chopping with more precision than Clara could manage. "But for what it's worth, you're good for him. He's been less of a nightmare since you started, almost human sometimes." "That's a ringing endorsement. It's the best you'll get from me." Mrs. Chen glanced at her. "Just be careful, child. Men like him don't know how to love without consuming. And when they lose what they love, they burn everything down." Clara thought about that all afternoon, about what it meant to be loved by someone dangerous, someone who'd already lost too much, someone who thought protection meant isolation. She was still thinking about it when Lucian left for his meeting at 6:30, pausing in the kitchen doorway to look at her like he was memorizing her face. "Be here when I get back?" he asked. "Where else would I be?" Something in his expression eased. Then he was gone, and Clara was alone with a pot of soup and too many thoughts. She was cleaning up when she heard the front door open again. Too early. Lucian's meetings usually ran late. She wiped her hands and went to the hallway. It wasn't Lucian. A man stood in the foyer, late 50s, expensive suit, silver hair slicked back. He looked at her with eyes that were calculating and cold. "You must be the new housekeeper," he said pleasantly. "I'm Marcus Volkov, an old friend of Lucian's." Every instinct Clara had screamed danger. "Mr. Voss isn't here." "I know, that's why I'm here." Marcus smiled and it didn't reach his eyes. "I wanted to meet you, the girl who brought him a birthday cake." Clara's blood went cold. "How do you know about that?" "I make it my business to know things about Lucian, especially when those things might be vulnerabilities." He stepped closer, and Clara fought the urge to run. You're very pretty. I can see why he's interested. You even look a bit like Elena, don't you? Same coloring, same build. Tell me, has he mentioned her? I think you should leave. I'm sure you do, but we're just having a conversation. Between friends. Marcus circled her slowly, like a predator assessing prey. Here's the thing about Lucian. He doesn't let people in. Not anymore. Not since Elena died. So when someone manages to slip past his defenses, well, that's worth paying attention to. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? Marcus stopped in front of her. You're here every day, cooking for him, making him feel things he hasn't felt in years. Making him weak. Clara's hands clenched into fists. Get out! Or what? You'll call security? Victor's very loyal, but he works for Lucian, not you. And Lucian isn't here. Marcus reached out, touched a strand of her hair. Clara jerked back. Such a waste. You seem like a nice girl. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong man. The front door opened. Lucian stood there, and the expression on his face made Clara's breath catch. Pure rage, barely contained. Marcus, what the hell are you doing in my house? Marcus turned, all easy charm. Lucian, I was just meeting your lovely housekeeper. You didn't tell me you'd hired someone new. Get out. We were just talking. Lucian moved. One moment he was by the door, the next he had Marcus shoved against the wall, forearm across his throat. If you ever come near her again, if you ever speak to her, if you even think about her, I will end you. Are we clear? Marcus laughed, even with Lucian choking him. There it is, the old Lucian, the one who burns everything down when threatened. His eyes flicked to Clara. You should run, sweetheart, before you end up like all the others. Lucian hit him. Once, hard enough that Clara heard something crack. Marcus crumpled. Victor! Lucian's voice echoed through the house. Victor appeared within seconds, took in the scene, didn't even blink. Get him out of here, and make it very clear that he's never welcome on my property again. Yes, sir. Victor hauled Marcus up, and the older man was laughing, blood on his teeth. You can't protect her forever, Lucian. They always find a way. Then he was gone, and it was just Lucian and Clara in the foyer. Are you okay? Lucian asked, his voice shaking. Did he hurt you? No, he talked. Clara's own voice sounded distant. He knew about the cake, about Elena, about us. Of course he did. Lucian pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight it almost hurt. Marcus knows everything. That's what makes him dangerous. Who is he? Someone I used to do business with. Someone I cut ties with 3 years ago because he was becoming unstable. Someone who's hated me ever since. He pulled back to look at her face. This is what I meant, Clara. This is why it's not safe. People like Marcus, they find the things you care about and they use them as weapons. Clara's mind was spinning. He said I looked like Elena. Lucian went very still. What? That's what he said. That I looked like her, same coloring, same build. She studied his face, saw something flicker there. Is that true? Lucian stepped back, ran a hand over his mouth. There's a superficial resemblance. Dark hair, similar height. But that's not... Clara, that's not why Are you sure? The question came out harder than she intended. Because suddenly I'm wondering if you even see me, or if you just see her. That's not fair, isn't it? You've been alone for 7 years. You shut everyone out. Then I show up with a birthday cake that reminds you of her, and suddenly you can't stay away. Clara's eyes burned. Maybe I'm just a convenient replacement, a way for you to feel something without actually moving on. That's not true. Then why didn't you tell me I looked like her? Because it doesn't matter. It matters to me. Clara's voice cracked. I need to know if you're falling for me or falling for a memory. Lucian looked stricken. Clara, I should go. She grabbed her coat, her purse. I need to think. Please don't leave like this. Why not? You're the one who said this was a mistake. She headed for the door, tears blurring her vision. Maybe you were right. She was in her car before he could stop her, pulling out of the driveway too fast. In her rearview mirror, she saw him standing in the doorway, looking like she'd gutted him. But she couldn't stop. Couldn't stay there with all those questions screaming in her head. Did he love her or her resemblance to a ghost? Was she Clara Hayes or just a substitute for Elena? The drive home was a blur. She parked in her building's lot and sat there, gripping the steering wheel, trying to breathe through the panic. Her phone rang. Lucian. She declined the call. It rang again and again. On the fourth try, she answered, "What? I need you to listen to me." His voice was rough. "Just listen." "I'm listening." "Yes, you look like Elena, but that's not why I care about you. That's not why I can't stop thinking about you." He paused. "When Elena was alive, I was a different person. Softer. She brought out the best in me. When she died, I became someone I didn't recognize. Someone cold and ruthless and empty." Clara didn't say anything. "Then you showed up with that damn cake, and for the first time in 7 years, I felt human again. Not because you reminded me of her, because you made me remember who I used to be, who I could be again." His voice dropped. "You're not a replacement, Clara. You're a second chance. And those are not the same thing." The tears came then, hot and fast. "I'm scared," she admitted, "of all of this, of you, of what people like Marcus will do to get to you. I know. I'm scared too." She heard him breathe. "But I meant what I said earlier. I'll keep you safe, whatever it takes." "What if safe means leaving?" Silence. Then, "Is that what you want?" Clara closed her eyes, thought about the kitchen and the wildflowers and the way he'd kissed her like she was air, thought about Marcus's cold eyes and Mrs. Chen's warnings and the empire built on blood. "No," she whispered, "but I don't know if what I want is enough. Come back, please. We'll figure this out together. I need time to think." "How much time?" "I don't know. A few days? Maybe more." Another pause. "Okay. Take the time you need. But Clara?" "Yeah?" "Don't disappear on me. I've lost enough people. I can't—" His voice broke. "I can't lose you too." She hung up before he could hear her crying, before she could change her mind and drive back to that fortress of a house and pretend everything was fine. But everything wasn't fine, and sitting in her car in the dark, Clara realized she'd crossed a line she couldn't uncross. She'd fallen in love with a dangerous man who lived in a dangerous world, and now she had to decide if love was worth the cost, because sooner or later, someone was going to make her pay. Clara didn't go back for 3 days. She called Mrs. Chen and said she was sick, which wasn't entirely a lie. Her stomach churned every time she thought about Marcus Volkov's cold smile, about the way Lucian had looked when she'd asked if she was just a replacement. She felt sick with doubt and fear, and something that might have been grief for a relationship that had barely started before cracking apart. Danny noticed on the second day. He cornered her in the kitchen while she was staring at coffee she hadn't bothered to drink. "Who is he?" her brother asked. "What?" "The guy who's got you looking like someone died. Who is he?" Clara tried to laugh it off. "I don't know what you're talking about. You've been checking your phone every 5 minutes. You jump every time it rings, and you haven't been to work since Tuesday." Danny sat down across from her. "So either you got fired again, or there's a guy. And since you're still stressed about money, I'm guessing it's the guy." She should have lied, should have brushed him off and changed the subject, but she was tired of carrying everything alone. "It's complicated," she said quietly. "Is he married?" "No, widowed." "Is he treating you badly?" Clara thought about wildflowers and kitchen dinners and the way Lucian had held her like she was made of glass. "No. He treats me like I'm the most important thing in the world." Then what's the problem? How could she explain that the man she was falling for had people killed, that his last girlfriend lost a leg to a car bomb, that she might look like his dead wife and couldn't tell if that mattered? "He's dangerous," she said instead. "People around him get hurt." Danny's expression hardened. "Is he threatening you?" "No, never. He's trying to protect me. But his life, his world, it's not safe, and I don't know if I can handle it." Her brother was quiet for a moment, turning his coffee mug in circles. "You remember when Dad left?" The subject changed through her. "Of course. You were 16, I was 10, and I remember you sitting me down and telling me that sometimes people leave because staying is too hard, that we couldn't blame him for choosing the easier path." Danny looked at her. "But then you said we weren't going to be like that. We were going to be the kind of people who stay, even when it's hard, even when it scares us." Clara's throat tightened. So if this guy is worth it, if he makes you happy, then the danger is just part of the deal. Danny reached across the table, squeezed her hand. But if he doesn't make you happy, if you're staying out of obligation or guilt or whatever, then walk away. You've spent your whole life taking care of everyone else. Maybe it's time to take care of yourself. She hugged him then, hard and sudden, and he hugged back without asking questions. When she pulled away, she felt something shift. Not clarity exactly, but direction. That night, she finally looked at her phone. 17 missed calls from Lucian. 23 text messages. She opened them with shaking hands. Please talk to me. I can't sleep knowing you're out there thinking, I don't see you. You're not her. You could never be her. You're something entirely different. I'm sorry. For all of it. For not being honest. For putting you in danger. For falling for you when I knew better. Just tell me you're safe. That's all I need to know. The last one was from an hour ago. Claire's finger hovered over the call button. She wasn't ready for his voice yet. Wasn't ready for the conversation they needed to have. Instead, she texted back, I'm safe. I just need a little more time. The response came within seconds. Take all the time you need. I'll be here. She stared at those words until they blurred. Then she opened her laptop and did something she'd been avoiding. She searched for Elena Voss. The results were sparse. A few society page mentions, a wedding announcement from 9 years ago, an obituary that was heartbreaking in its brevity. But there were photos. Clara clicked through them with a growing knot in her stomach. Elena had been beautiful. Dark hair, yes, but longer than Clara's, styled in waves that probably required professional help. She'd been taller too, judging by the photos where she stood next to Lucian. More elegant. The kind of woman who looked comfortable at charity galas and museum openings. Clara studied one photo for a long time. Lucian and Elena at some fundraiser, him in a tux, her in a silver dress that probably cost more than Clara made in a year. They looked happy, in love, like people who belonged together. She didn't see herself in Elena. Not really. Yes, they both had dark hair and pale skin, but that's where the similarity ended. Elena had been polished and graceful. Clara was the girl who wore the same black pants to work every day and couldn't afford a haircut at anywhere fancier than supercuts. The knot in her stomach loosened slightly. Maybe Lucian had been telling the truth. Maybe the resemblance was superficial, something other people noticed more than he did. Or maybe she was just desperate to believe him. On the fourth day, Clara woke up and knew she couldn't hide anymore. Whatever this thing with Lucian was, whatever it would become, she needed to face it. Needed to look him in the eye and ask the questions that were eating her alive. She texted him at 7 a.m. I'm coming over today. We need to talk. I'll be here. The drive up the hill felt different this time. Not scary exactly, but weighted with consequence. She was either about to save something worth saving or end something that never should have started. Either way, she'd have an answer. Victor met her at the door, his expression unreadable. Miss Hayes, he's been waiting for you. Where is he? The garden. Of course. Where everything between them had started. Clara found him sitting on the same bench where he'd apologized weeks ago. He stood when he saw her, and the hope on his face was almost painful to witness. Clara. Hi. The word came out awkward. She sat down, leaving space between them. We should talk. Yes. Lucian sat too, careful not to crowd her. Can I go first? She nodded. He took a breath and she realized his hands were shaking. I've been thinking about what you said. About Elena. About whether I see you or just a ghost. He turned to face her fully. I need you to understand something about grief. It doesn't work the way people think it does. You don't just move through stages and come out the other side healed. It changes you. Makes you into someone different. Clara listened, not interrupting. When Elena died, I became obsessed with control. If I could control everything, my business, my home, the people around me, then nothing bad could happen again. But control is just another word for isolation. And isolation is just another word for dying slowly. His voice roughened. You didn't remind me of Elena. You reminded me of what it felt like to be alive. To want something beyond power and revenge and empty routine. But you can't deny I look like her. You have similar coloring. That's biology, not destiny. Lucian reached out, stopped himself before touching her. Can I show you something? Okay. He pulled out his phone, opened the Photos app, handed it to her. The screen showed a picture of Elena, a candid shot, laughing at something off camera. She was stunning. "Now look at yourself," Lucian said quietly. Clara pulled out her own phone, opened the camera in selfie mode, set both phones side by side. The similarity was there, yes, but so were the differences. Elena's eyes were lighter, her face more angular, her smile effortless in a way Clara's had never been. They could have been distant relatives, maybe, but not the same person, not even close. "I see it now," Lucian said, "the resemblance. But it's like saying two songs are the same because they're both in a minor key. The notes are different, the melody is different, the feeling they create is completely different." He took his phone back, closed the photo. "Elena was my first love. She made me better when I was young and stupid and thought I was invincible. You make me better now when I'm old and broken and know exactly how fragile everything is. Those are not the same thing." Clara wanted to believe him, wanted it so badly her chest ached. "Marcus said I was making you weak," she said. Lucian's expression darkened. "Marcus is a vindictive bastard who's been trying to destroy me for 3 years. Is he right, though? About you making me weak?" Lucian actually laughed, bitter and sharp. "You make me terrified. You make me hope for things I thought were dead. You make me want to be the kind of man who deserves you. If that's weakness, then I guess I'm weak. That's not what I meant. I know what you meant. You're asking if caring about you makes me vulnerable. If my enemies will use you to hurt me." He met her eyes. "The answer is yes. Absolutely yes. And I hate it. But the alternative is living the rest of my life alone in this house, pretending I don't need anyone, slowly turning into the monster everyone already thinks I am." The fountain bubbled in the silence between them. "I'm scared," Clara admitted, "of all of it, of Marcus and people like him, of being hurt, of you waking up one day and realizing you don't actually want this." "I'm scared too, terrified actually." Lucian shifted closer. "But I think being scared together is better than being safe alone." Clara looked at him, really looked, saw the exhaustion in his eyes, the tension in his jaw, the way he held himself like he was braced for her to leave. He looked nothing like the cold, controlled man who'd fired her 6 weeks ago. He looked human, fallible, real. "I need you to promise me something," she said. "Anything. If this gets too dangerous, if people like Marcus escalate, you let me make my own choice about staying. You don't push me away to protect me. You tell me the truth and trust me to decide." Lucian's jaw worked. "That's asking me to let you walk into danger." "No, that's asking you to treat me like an equal instead of something you need to shelter." Clara took his hand, laced their fingers together. "I'm not fragile, Lucian. I've been taking care of my family since I was 16. I've worked 3 jobs at once. I've dealt with landlords and debt collectors, and my mother's bad days and my brother's panic attacks. I'm stronger than you think." "I know you are. That's what scares me." But his hand tightened on hers. "Okay, I promise. No more pushing you away without talking first. And you tell me the truth about your business, about the threats, about everything that could affect us." He hesitated, and she saw the war in his eyes, the instinct to protect her by keeping her ignorant versus the promise he'd just made. "Most of what I do is legal," he said carefully. "Real estate development, property management, investment portfolios. But some of my holdings came from less legitimate sources, and some of the people I do business with they operate in gray areas. I've been trying to separate myself from that side of things for the past few years, but it's complicated. You can't just walk away from certain partnerships. Like Marcus. Lucian's expression hardened. He was useful once, connected, but he started getting sloppy, drawing attention we didn't need. I cut ties and he took it personally. He's been trying to undermine me ever since." "Is he the one who killed Elena?" The question hung between them, sharp and terrible. Lucian's face went blank. "I don't know," he said finally. "I've spent 7 years trying to find out who gave the order. There are suspects. Marcus is one of them, but I've never been able to prove it." Clara's heart cracked. That must be torture. It was, still is sometimes. He looked down at their joined hands. "But lately I've been thinking, maybe I've been asking the wrong question. Maybe it doesn't matter who killed her. Maybe what matters is what I do with the life I still have. And what do you want to do with it?" Lucian raised her hand to his lips, pressed a kiss to her knuckles. "I want to be better. Build something that isn't soaked in blood and fear. Spend time with someone who makes me remember why any of it matters. His eyes met hers. I want you, Clara. However I can have you. Whatever that looks like. She should have been cautious, should have asked for more time, more proof, more guarantees. But she was tired of being careful. Tired of protecting herself from the very thing she wanted most. Then you have me, she whispered. Lucian pulled her into his arms, and she went willingly, pressing her face against his chest and listening to his heart hammer. He held her like she might disappear, like she was the only solid thing in a world made of smoke. I missed you, he said into her hair. 3 days and I felt like I was losing my mind. I missed you too. Clara pulled back enough to see his face. But Lucian, we need ground rules. Real ones. Okay. First, I want to meet Victor properly. If he's going to be protecting me, I should at least know him. Done. What else? I keep working. I'm not going to become some kept woman who sits around waiting for you. She paused. Although maybe we adjust my job description. I don't think I can be your housekeeper and your girlfriend at the same time without it getting weird. Something that might have been amusement touched his mouth. What do you suggest? I don't know. Personal assistant? That's vague enough to cover whatever this is. Clara chewed her lip. And I need to tell Danny, not everything but something. He knows I'm seeing someone, and if I keep lying to him, he'll worry. Lucian tensed. Clara, you can meet him, vet him, do whatever security check you need, but he's my brother, and I won't shut him out completely. She cupped his face, made him look at her. That's non-negotiable. He was quiet for a long moment, clearly wrestling with instincts that screamed danger. Finally, he nodded. Okay, but I meet him first, and he signs an NDA. An NDA? He's my brother, not a business partner. He's also a college student who talks to friends and posts on social media. I'm not trying to be controlling, Clara. I'm trying to keep you both safe. Lucian's voice was gentle but firm. If word gets out that you matter to me, you become a target. I need to know that your brother understands the stakes. It was paranoid, excessive, exactly the kind of thing that should have sent her running. But looking into Lucian's eyes, seeing the genuine fear there, Clara understood. This wasn't about control. It was about trauma. About watching people he loved get hurt and being powerless to stop it. Okay, she said. He signs the NDA, but you have to be nice when you meet him. No intimidation tactics. I'm always nice. Lucian. Fine. I'll be on my best behavior. She kissed him then, soft and slow, and felt him relax into it. When they pulled apart, he was almost smiling. Stay for dinner? He asked. I have groceries in my car. I was planning on it. You brought groceries? I know you haven't been eating properly. Mrs. Chen texted me. Clara stood, pulling him up with her. So yes, I brought groceries, and you're going to sit in the kitchen and keep me company while I cook, and we're going to pretend this is normal. None of this is normal. Then we'll make a new normal. They walked back to the house hand in hand, and for the first time in days, Clara felt the knot in her chest loosen. This was still complicated, still dangerous, still probably a terrible idea. But it was hers, and for once she was choosing what she wanted instead of what was safe. Mrs. Chen was in the kitchen when they entered, and the look she gave their joined hands was knowing and exasperated in equal measure. So you worked it out, she said. We're trying, Clara replied. Mrs. Chen looked at Lucian. You hurt her. I'll poison your food. Noted. I'm serious. I've worked for you for 5 years and I like you just fine, but I like her more. Lucian's expression softened. So do I, Mrs. Chen, so do I. The older woman nodded, satisfied, and left them alone. Clara unpacked her groceries while Lucian sat at the table with his laptop, working, but not really, his attention drifting to her every few minutes. You're staring again, she said without turning around. Can't help it. Try. Make me. Clara threw a dish towel at him. He caught it, grinning, and something in her chest went warm and bright. This was what she wanted. Not the mansion or the money or even the protection. Just this. Easy moments with someone who looked at her like she hung the moon. They ate dinner together, talking about nothing important. Books they'd read. Movies they'd seen. The stray cat that had finally let Clara pet it last week. Normal things, safe things, The kind of conversation people had when they weren't navigating danger and grief and the weight of the past. Later, doing dishes while Lucian dried, Clara's phone rang. Danny. "I should take this," she said. "Go ahead." She answered on speaker, her hand still in soapy water. "Hey, where are you?" Danny asked. "Mom's asking." "I'm at work. Why?" "It's 9 p.m., Clara. You're never at work this late." She glanced at Lucian, who was watching her with careful eyes. "I'm having dinner with my boss. We're discussing some changes to my position." "Your boss?" Danny's voice was flat. "The dangerous guy." "He's right here, actually. You're on speaker." Silence. Then, "Oh." Lucian set down the dish towel, leaned closer to the phone. "Hi, Danny. I'm Lucian Voss. Your sister works for me. And dates you, apparently. Also that yes." Another pause. Clara could practically hear her brother's thoughts churning. "Are you good to her?" Danny asked finally. "I'm trying to be." "That's not an answer." "No, it's not." Lucian's voice was steady, serious. "The honest answer is that I care about your sister more than I've cared about anyone in a long time, and I'm doing everything in my power to keep her safe and happy. But I'm not perfect, and my life is complicated, and I can't promise I won't make mistakes." Clara's throat tightened. She hadn't expected him to be so honest. "Clara," Danny said, "you still there?" "Yeah." "Are you happy?" She looked at Lucian, at the worry in his eyes, the tension in his jaw, the way he was trying so hard to say the right thing to her brother. "Yeah," she said softly. "I am." "Then I guess that's what matters." Danny exhaled. "But I want to meet him, properly, not on speakerphone." "We can arrange that," Lucian said before Clara could respond. "Name the time and place. I'll be there." "Okay, I'll text Clara." A pause. "And Lucian, if you hurt my sister, I will find a way to make you regret it. I don't care how rich or powerful or dangerous you are." Lucian smiled, genuine and warm. "I'd expect nothing less. Your sister's lucky to have you looking out for her." After they hung up, Clara turned to Lucian. "That went better than I expected. He seems like a good kid." "He is." She finished the last dish, dried her hands. "Thank you for being honest with him. I'm trying this new thing where I tell the truth. It's terrifying." Clara laughed, and Lucian pulled her close, kissing her forehead. "Stay tonight," he said quietly. I'm not asking for anything except your company. I just want you here." She should have said no, should have maintained boundaries, kept things slow, but she was tired of being careful. "Okay," she whispered. They ended up in the library, curled together on the couch with a fire crackling and some documentary on TV that neither of them watched. Lucian held her like she was precious, his fingers tracing idle patterns on her shoulder, and Clara felt safer than she had in days. "Can I ask you something?" she said eventually. "Always?" "What's the end game here? Where do you see this going?" Lucian was quiet for a moment. "Honestly, I don't know. I've spent 7 years not planning for a future beyond the next business deal. The idea of having something long-term, something real, it's foreign. That's not very reassuring." "I know." He shifted so he could see her face. "But I can tell you what I want. I want more nights like this. I want to know what you look like first thing in the morning. I want to meet your family properly and have them not hate me. I want to take you somewhere that isn't this house and show you that I can be normal sometimes." He paused. "I want to figure out how to build a life that includes you, however that looks." Clara's eyes burned. "That's a lot of wanting." "Too much?" "No." She kissed him, soft and sure. "It's exactly enough." They stayed like that until the fire died down and the documentary ended and exhaustion pulled at both of them. Lucian walked her to one of the guest rooms, kissed her goodnight like it physically hurt to let her go. "Sleep well," he said. "You too." But lying in the unfamiliar bed, listening to the old house settle around her, Clara couldn't sleep. Her mind kept circling back to Marcus Volkov, to his cold smile and calculated words, to the warning that they always find a way. She didn't know who they were, didn't know what Marcus was planning or when he'd strike next. But she knew with bone-deep certainty that this peace was temporary, that the danger Mrs. Chen had warned about wasn't hypothetical. It was coming, And when it arrived, Clara would have to decide if love was worth fighting for or if some things were too dangerous to hold on to. The threat came 3 weeks later, on a Tuesday morning that started like any other. Clara was in the kitchen making coffee when Victor appeared in the doorway, his face carved from stone. "We have a situation." Her blood went cold. "What kind of situation?" "Someone left a package at your apartment building last night, addressed to you." He set a manila envelope on the counter. "Don't touch it. We already checked for explosives and biological agents. It's clean, but you need to see what's inside." Clara's hands shook as Victor opened the envelope and pulled out photographs. Her stomach dropped. They were surveillance photos. Her leaving her apartment, walking to her car, standing in the grocery store, eating lunch with Danny at a campus cafe. Every single moment from the past 3 weeks, cataloged and documented by someone she'd never seen. The last photo was different. It showed her mother through their apartment window, sitting in her chair watching TV, completely unaware she was being photographed. There was a note attached in neat handwriting. "Beautiful family you have. Would be a shame if something happened to them." Clara couldn't breathe. The kitchen tilted sideways. "Sit down," Victor said, not unkindly, guiding her to a chair. "Put your head between your knees." She did, gasping for air, trying not to throw up. Victor got her water. Mrs. Chen appeared from somewhere, her hand on Clara's back. "Where's Lucian?" Clara managed. "On his way. He was at a meeting downtown." Victor's phone buzzed. "That's him now. He's 10 minutes out." Those 10 minutes felt like hours. Clara sat at the kitchen table, staring at the photographs spread in front of her, seeing her entire life reduced to ammunition. Someone had been watching her, following her, getting close enough to photograph her mother through a window. Danny. Her mother. People who had nothing to do with Lucian's world now dragged into it because Clara had been stupid enough to fall in love. She heard the front door slam, footsteps running. Then Lucian burst into the kitchen, his face white. "Are you hurt?" "No, I'm fine. She gestured at the photos. "They know where I live, where my family lives." Lucian picked up the photographs, his jaw clenching tighter with each one. When he got to the picture of Clara's mother, something dangerous flashed across his face. "Marcus," he said quietly, "you don't know that. I know exactly that. This is his style. Surveillance, intimidation, threatening family to get compliance." Lucian set the photos down carefully, like they might shatter. "He's trying to scare you into leaving." "It's working. Clara, my mother Lucian. He photographed my mother through our window. What if next time it's not just a photo? What if he hurts them to get to you?" "He won't. I won't let him." But Lucian's voice was strained, and Clara heard the lie underneath. He couldn't promise that. No one could. "Maybe I should go," she whispered. "Move away. Take my family somewhere he can't find us. Running won't help. Marcus has resources everywhere. If he wants to find you, he will." Lucian knelt in front of her chair, taking her hands. "The safest place for you and your family is close to me, where I can protect you." "How? By putting them in a fortress too? By making them prisoners in their own lives?" "If that's what it takes." Clara pulled her hands away. That's not a life. That's just a different kind of cage. It's temporary, until I deal with Marcus." The way he said "deal with" made her stomach turn. "What does that mean?" Lucian stood up, his expression going cold in a way she hadn't seen since the night he'd fired her. "It means I'm going to make it very clear that you and your family are off limits. And if he doesn't listen, then I'll make sure he can't threaten anyone ever again." Victor cleared his throat. "Sir, I should mention, Marcus isn't working alone. We've identified at least 3 other people in his network. Taking him out won't necessarily end the threat. Then we take out the network." Lucian said it like he was discussing the weather, like violence was just another business strategy. Clara stood up, shaking. "No. No? You don't get to kill people to protect me. I won't be the reason you become the monster everyone already thinks you are." "I'm already a monster, Clara. I've just been pretending otherwise for your benefit." "That's not true." "Isn't it?" Lucian's voice was sharp. "You know what I am, what I've done. You've known from the beginning, so don't act surprised now that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to keep you safe." "There has to be another way." "There isn't." He turned to Victor. "Double security on Clara's apartment building. Put someone outside her mother's door 24/7. I want eyes on Danny at all times. And find Marcus. I don't care what it costs." "Already working on it," Victor said. Clara grabbed Lucian's arm, said, "Stop. Just stop and think for a second. If you go after Marcus, you're giving him exactly what he wants. Proof that I matter enough to make you reckless. You're showing your hand." "I don't care." "Well, I do." She moved in front of him, forcing him to look at her. "I didn't sign up for this so you could throw away everything you've been trying to build. You told me you wanted to be better, that you were separating yourself from the violence. Was that a lie?" Lucian's expression cracked. "I meant it, but that was before someone threatened you." "So the first real test and you're ready to burn it all down? To keep you safe?" "Yes," without hesitation. The certainty in his voice should have been romantic. Instead, it terrified her. "Then maybe this was a mistake," Clara said quietly. "Maybe we moved too fast. Maybe—" "Don't." Lucian's hands came up to frame her face. "Don't say it. Don't even think it." "What else am I supposed to think?" 3 weeks, Lucian. We've been together 3 weeks and someone's already threatening my family. What happens in 3 months? 3 years? How long before someone I love gets hurt because they're close to me? I won't let that happen. You can't promise that. Tears burned her eyes. You couldn't protect Elena. You couldn't protect Sophie. What makes you think you can protect me? The words landed like a physical blow. Lucian stepped back, his hands dropping. You're right, he said hollowly. I couldn't protect them. And maybe I can't protect you either. Maybe everyone around me is doomed to suffer. He looked at her with such devastation that Clara's heart cracked. Maybe the kindest thing I could do is let you go. Lucian, no, you're right. This was selfish from the start. I wanted you so badly I ignored every warning sign. I put you in danger because I was tired of being alone. His voice broke. I'm sorry for all of it. He walked out of the kitchen before Clara could respond. She heard his footsteps on the stairs, then the slam of a door somewhere above. The kitchen was silent except for Mrs. Chen's quiet breathing. Go after him, the older woman said. I don't know what to say. Then don't say anything. Just be there. Mrs. Chen touched her shoulder gently. He's spiraling, and when he spirals, he makes bad decisions. You're the only one who can pull him back. Clara looked at Victor, who nodded. She's right. When he gets like this, people get hurt, usually himself most of all. She found him in his bedroom, a space she'd never seen before. It was surprisingly simple. None of the ostentation of the rest of the house. Just clean lines, dark furniture, a bed that looked like he rarely slept in it. He stood at the window, hands braced on the frame, his whole body rigid. I didn't mean it, Clara said from the doorway. What I said about Elena and Sophie, that was cruel. It was also true. Lucian didn't turn around. I failed them both, and I'll probably fail you too. That's what I do. I care about people, and then I can't keep them safe. Clara crossed the room, wrapped her arms around him from behind. He was shaking. You didn't fail them, she said against his back. Bad people made bad choices. That's not on you. I should have seen it coming. Should have been more careful. Should have what? Locked everyone you loved in a cage? Never let them leave the house? That's not protection. That's prison. Lucian turned in her arms and his eyes were wet. Then what do I do? How do I keep you safe without destroying you? You don't. Not alone. Clara took his face in her hands. You trust me to be smart. You trust Victor to do his job. You trust that we're all in this together instead of carrying it by yourself. I don't know how to do that. Then learn. Because I'm not going anywhere, Lucian. Not because of Marcus. Not because you're scared. Not because this is hard. She kissed him softly. I chose you, knowing the risks, knowing the danger, and I'm choosing you again right now. Why? His voice was raw. Why would you choose this? Because you're worth it. Because what we have is worth fighting for. Because I love you, you idiot. The words hung in the air between them. Clara hadn't meant to say them, hadn't planned this moment. But there they were, true and terrifying and impossible to take back. Lucian stared at her like she'd just handed him the world. You love me. Yeah, I do, even though you're dramatic and paranoid and way too willing to murder people on my behalf. He laughed, short and disbelieving, and pulled her close. I love you too. So much it scares me. They held each other for a long time, breathing in sync, finding stability in the storm. Finally, Clara pulled back. So what do we do about Marcus? We fight smart, not brutal. Lucian's voice was steadier now. Victor's been building a case against him. Financial crimes, racketeering, evidence that could put him away for 20 years. We turn it over to the FBI. And if that doesn't work, then we have other options, but we try the legal route first. He tucked her hair behind her ear. For you. Because you asked me to be better. I'm also going to learn self-defense, Clara said, and my family needs to know what's happening. No more secrets. They deserve to understand the danger. Lucian tensed. Clara, no arguments. Danny's smart. My mom's tougher than she looks. They can handle the truth. She squeezed his hand. And they'll handle it better than finding out later that I've been lying to them. He didn't like it. She could see the war in his eyes, every instinct screaming to control the information. But finally, he nodded. Okay, we tell them together. They went downstairs to find Victor already coordinating enhanced security. Mrs. Chen had made tea that Clara suspected was more whiskey than anything else. They sat at the kitchen table and planned, really planned. Not just Lucian issuing orders, but all of them contributing. Victor would handle the FBI handoff. Mrs. Chen knew a private investigator who specialized in stalking cases. Clara would move her family to a secure apartment Lucian owned in a better neighborhood, one with actual security and cameras and doors that locked properly. They're going to hate it, Clara said. My mom especially. She's lived in that apartment for 15 years. Then we make the new place feel like home, Lucian said. Move all their furniture, paint the walls the same colors, whatever it takes. You do that? I'd do anything for you. I thought I'd made that clear. That evening, Clara brought Danny and her mother to the mansion. Her mother took one look at the place and whistled. Well, this is different. Mom, Danny, this is Lucian Voss, my... Clara hesitated. Boyfriend, Lucian supplied, shaking their hands. An employer, though we're working on separating those roles. Danny studied him with protective eyes. You're the dangerous one. Yes, I appreciate the honesty. Danny sat down on the couch, pulling their mother down next to him. So what's the emergency? Clara said we needed to talk. Lucian looked at Clara, who nodded. He took a breath and told them everything. Marcus. The threats. The photographs. The danger. He didn't sugarcoat it or try to minimize it, just laid out the facts and waited. Clara's mother was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Show me the pictures. Victor produced the envelope. Her mother looked through each photograph carefully, her expression hardening. This man took pictures of me in my own home. Yes, ma'am. And you think he'll try to hurt us to get to you? It's possible, Lucian said. I'm doing everything I can to prevent that, but I need you to be aware of the risk. Okay. She set the photos down. What do you need from us? Lucian blinked. I'm sorry? You're not asking us to run. You're not paying us off to leave Clara alone, so you must need something from us. What is it? Clara felt her throat tighten. Her mother understood. Of course she understood. I need you to let me move you, Lucian said. Somewhere safer. Somewhere with security. Just until this is resolved. And how long will that take? I don't know. Weeks? Maybe? Possibly months. Danny leaned forward. And what about school? I can't just disappear from campus. You'll have security with you. Victor's team will coordinate with campus police. You'll still attend classes, still work at the library, but someone will always be nearby. Lucian's voice was steady, professional. I understand this is an enormous imposition, and I'm sorry. If there was another way... There isn't, Clara's mother interrupted. I can see that. You care about my daughter. She clearly cares about you. And sometimes caring about people means accepting their baggage. She stood up, walked over to Lucian. But let me be very clear. If anything happens to either of my children because of your world, there is nowhere you can hide that I won't find you. Understood? Lucian actually smiled. Understood completely, ma'am. Good. Then let's see this new apartment. The move happened within 48 hours. Lucian's people were efficient, professional, and surprisingly gentle with her mother's belongings. The new apartment was 3 times the size of their old place, with actual closets and a dishwasher and windows that overlooked a park instead of a parking lot. I could get used to this, her mother admitted, exploring the master bedroom. Don't tell him that. Too late, Lucian said from the doorway, making her jump. I'm glad you approve. Over the next 2 weeks, Clara split her time between the mansion and the new apartment. Danny got used to having Victor's people shadow him, though he complained constantly about how they cramped his style. Her mother actually seemed to enjoy the security, using them as an excuse to finally take walks in the evening like she'd always wanted. And slowly, carefully, Victor and his team built a case against Marcus Volkov. They found financial irregularities, money laundering through shell corporations, connections to 3 unsolved murders, enough to make the FBI very, very interested. The day they arrested Marcus, Clara was at the mansion cooking dinner. Victor came in with the news, and Lucian actually laughed. Not his bitter laugh, but something genuine. "Is it over?" Clara asked. "Not quite. The trial will take months, and he has allies who might still cause problems." Lucian pulled her close. "But it's a start." The trial was brutal. Marcus's lawyers tried everything, attacking the evidence, questioning the witnesses, painting Lucian as the real criminal. Clara sat through some of it, watching the man who'd threatened her family try to convince a jury he was innocent. He didn't convince them. The guilty verdict came on a Friday in late spring. Clara was in the courthouse with Lucian when they read it. Guilty on 14 counts, including conspiracy to commit murder. He'd be going away for the rest of his life. Marcus looked at them as they let him out. His smile was small and cold. "This doesn't end anything," he said. "There's always someone else." But Lucian just smiled back. "Let them come. I'm not afraid anymore." And he wasn't. Clara could see it in the way he carried himself after that. Lighter, somehow, like he'd put down a weight he'd been carrying for years. They walked out of the courthouse into spring sunshine, and Lucian stopped on the steps, turning to face her. "Marry me," he said. Clara blinked. "What? Marry me? Not now. We should probably date longer than 4 months before making it legal. But eventually, when you're ready, when this all feels less insane." He took her hands. "I want a future with you. A real one. Not just stolen moments between crises." "That's the worst proposal I've ever heard." "Probably. I'm out of practice." He grinned, and he looked younger than she'd ever seen him. "Is that a no?" "It's a ask me again when you have a ring and haven't just watched your enemy get sentenced to life in prison." Clara stood on her toes, kissed him. "But it's not a no." "I'll take it." They went home, because the mansion had become home somewhere along the way, and found Mrs. Chen in the kitchen with champagne already open. "You knew," Clara accused. "I know everything that happens in this house." Mrs. Chen poured 3 glasses. "Congratulations. Try not to have children immediately. You're both disasters." "We're working on it," Lucian said, wrapping an arm around Clara's waist. That night they sat in the garden where everything had started. The same bench, the same fountain, but everything felt different now. Lighter. Possible. "Can I tell you something?" Lucian said. "Always. The night you brought me that cake, I almost didn't call you back. Almost convinced myself it was better to let you go, that I didn't deserve another chance at this." "What changed your mind?" "I realized I'd been asking the wrong question. I kept asking if I deserved to be happy, but the real question was whether I was brave enough to try." He turned to look at her. "You made me brave again, Clara. You reminded me that love isn't weakness. It's the strongest thing we have." Clara felt tears prick her eyes. "You made me brave too. I spent so long playing it safe, taking care of everyone else, never asking for what I wanted. You taught me it's okay to want things, to fight for them. Even when they're dangerous and dramatic and way too willing to murder people on your behalf. Especially then." They stayed in the garden until the stars came out, talking about the future. Not the big things. Those could wait. Just the small things. Where to go on vacation. What color to paint the library. Whether to get a dog. Normal things. Beautiful things. The kind of things people planned when they believed in tomorrow. 6 months later, Lucian proposed again. Properly this time, with a ring that had belonged to his grandmother and a speech he'd clearly practiced but still fumbled through nervously. Clara said yes before he finished, laughing and crying at the same time. They got married in the garden, small and private, just family and the few friends who'd stuck around through everything. Danny walked her down the aisle. Mrs. Chen cried into a handkerchief. Victor actually smiled, and when Lucian kissed her, Clara tasted 7 years of grief finally transforming into hope. The world didn't become safe overnight. There were still threats, still enemies, still moments when Clara woke up afraid. But they faced them together. her and Lucian, and the strange little family they'd built from broken pieces. 2 years after the wedding, Clara started a foundation for families affected by organized crime, helping them find safe housing, legal support, therapy, turning her pain into something useful. Lucian slowly shifted his business entirely legitimate, cutting ties with anyone who couldn't operate in daylight. It cost him money and influence, but he did it anyway. Because Clara had asked him to be better, and he'd meant it when he promised to try. Danny graduated college and moved to California for a job in tech. Her mother finally got the knee surgery she'd been putting off, paid for by Lucian without being asked. They spent holidays together, loud, messy, imperfect gatherings that felt like healing. 5 years after that first birthday cake, Clara woke up in the mansion to find Lucian already awake, watching her with soft eyes. "What?" she asked sleepily. "Nothing. Just thinking about how different things are now. Good different or bad different?" "Good. So good I keep waiting for it to disappear." He pulled her closer. "I used to think I'd lost my chance at this, at happiness, at normal. Then you showed up with a cake and proved me wrong." Clara kissed his shoulder. "Best mistake I ever made." "Second best. The first was coming back after I fired you." "Fair point." They lay there in comfortable silence, and Clara thought about the woman she'd been 2 years ago. Desperate and scared and willing to work for a man everyone warned her about. She'd walked into danger thinking she had no other choice, but she'd had a choice all along, and she'd chosen love over safety, chosen to stay when leaving would have been easier, chosen to believe that broken people could heal if given the chance. It hadn't been smooth or easy or anything like the fairy tales promised. There had been threats and tears and moments when she'd questioned everything. But there had also been laughter and understanding and a kind of love that felt worth every risk. Later that day, Clara found herself in the kitchen making dinner, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. Because cooking for Lucian still felt like care, like coming home, like the simplest way to say I love you. He wandered in while she was chopping vegetables, wrapped his arms around her waist, pressed a kiss to her neck. "What are we having?" "Chicken, your favorite." "Everything you make is my favorite." Flatterer. Truth teller. He rested his chin on her shoulder. "Thank you." "For cooking?" "You thank me every night. It's getting old." "Not for cooking, for everything else. For staying, for fighting, for seeing me when I didn't want to be seen." His arms tightened. "For bringing me that stupid cake." Clara set down the knife, turned in his arms to face him. "It wasn't stupid. It was exactly what you needed." "How did you know?" "I didn't. I just knew that everyone deserves to feel seen on their birthday. Even terrifying men who live in fortresses." She touched his face. "Especially them." Lucian kissed her then, slow and deep and full of everything they'd survived together. When they pulled apart, he was smiling. "I love you, Clara Voss." "I love you too." They finished making dinner together, moving around the kitchen with practiced ease. And somewhere in the ordinariness of it, the chopping and stirring and tasting, Clara understood something important. Love wasn't about grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It was about showing up, about choosing someone over and over, even when it was hard, about seeing their worst parts and loving them anyway. It was about birthday cakes and kitchen tables and conversations that lasted until dawn, about trusting someone with your fear and your hope and everything in between. She'd learned that from Lucian, and he'd learned it from her. And together, they'd built something neither of them could have built alone. Not perfect. Never perfect. Just real and messy and entirely theirs. And that, Clara thought as they sat down to eat, was more than enough. That was everything.